Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Happy Thursday.
Order the food. I use my finger.
Trying to get everybody in.
Biodiversity is a term.
Okay, let's go back to yeah. Okay, that's the one we
Slums, a fair game for driver ads.
All right, while you're waiting, make sure that you have uploaded your symbiosis. Let's see here. Oh, okay. I can't say that. So, be honest. All right, I want to look at, I was looking at some of the habitat study reports. I don't think I haven't graded them. I just looked at them and then discovered that you all have a misunderstanding of the term. So we're going to look at the definition of niche, fundamental niche, and realized niche. There it is. Okay, I think everybody's here. Just about. That's good, 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 good. Okay, gotcha. All right, so again, before we start, so we are going to move on. And before we start communities, I want to go back and look at niche. Okay. I had this one prepped, but then I looked at something else and then it just disappeared on me.
You make it through security so fast?
In this video, we're going to look at ecological niche. Here are two photos that I've taken. These guys both live around my house in Qatar. Let's consider how they both live. The Lilith owl lives in the open desert, hunting live prey such as insects and small lizards. Now the common kestrel also lives in the open desert, hunting live prey such as insects and small lizards. Looking at this, it appears that they share the same way of life, but we know the owl is nocturnal, it feeds at night, while the kestrel is diurnal, feeding during the day. They are separated by time, reducing competition that they could have. This supports Gauss's competitive exclusion principle that states no two organisms can occupy the same niche at the same time. So what is an ecological niche? It could be described as the way of life of a species or population. This would include what it does, where it does it, and when it does it. From this description of an ecological niche, we
Okay, I want you to write that down. So write ecological niche, the title up at the top. Ecological niche. And let's start with that. It's the way of life, and the way of life can be what it does, where it does it, and when it does it. Okay? And because what I'm going to have you all do is go back and look at what you can put it on it however you make notes for yourself. Somebody asked me, do we put it on a doc? You can put it on a doc however you make notes for yourself. You're not turning this in. This is for you. So you could do it on scratch paper, however you want to say this. Ecological niche. So take the title up at the top as your definition that we're looking at. And it is defined simply, not this, that's not the definition you have in your Canvas, but in common language, it's the way of life. And again, way of life could mean what it does, where it does it, and when it does it. Okay? All right, so take a minute to write that down. I'm going to step away for a minute. I'll be right back.
can clearly see that the kestrel and the owl differ in when they feed, so therefore they do not occupy the same niche. The idea of ecological niche can be developed further. Consider a rocky shore, such as this, or this. We see horizontal bands across these areas. A closer look shows that this is due to the distribution of species. Where I live, this could be drawn like this. If we imagine this is a piece of rocky shore, this is the mean high tide mark, this is the mean low tide mark. Our tidal variation sweeps up and down this approximately twice a day. At the very bottom of this area we have algae. Above this we have a zone of many mussels. Above this we have a zone of limpets. And finally, near the top we have a lot of barnacles. Excuse my bad drawings, this is just an indication. In fact, the barnacles and limpets can often extend well above the mean high tide mark in what we call the splash zone. It could be argued that these limits are the limits of the niche of the species. So here, these are the limits of the niche of the limpet. Usually the upper limit is due to desiccation or drying out, while the lower limit is due to competition with other species. A long time ago, scientists discovered that if they removed a species, such as picking off all of the mussels, then the range of the species around them expanded. In this case, the limpets were found further down, so the range of the limpets expanded into the vacant area. Now this left biologists with a problem. What was the niche? Was it the original distribution or was it the final distribution? This could be rephrased as where we do find a species or where we can find a species. These have been given names. Where we can find a species is called a fundamental niche, while where we do find a species is called a realized niche.
All right, I'll pause it right there and let you write that down, because that was your assignment, was to look at your habitat, describe the niche, and then describe what the difference between your fundamental niche in that habitat and your realized niche in that habitat. Okay? So write those two down. So for example, if your house is your habitat, then we want to look at that is where you can find you. And then, sorry, where we can find you. And then where, if we had to look at your role, what you're doing in that. So it's a difference between what you can do in that habitat and what you are doing. So there's a lot of things that can be done in your house. Then we have to look at, there's other people in your house that you're in competition with. So what do you actually do? Your realized function in that habitat. Okay?
The difference between these is that the fundamental
I will
niche
check on it in
is
a minute.
reduced in size by competition. For our seashore example, we can find
Put that note
limpets
on it
over
too.
quite a wide range, basically from here down to here. However,
Actually,
we do find
go
them
back
in
for a
the
minute.
small
I
example. We
mentioned
can
this.
find limpets over.
All right, so I write that down also. Reduced by competition. Like I said, there's other people in your house, and there's a lot of people who can do the things that need to be done. So what is it that you are reduced to doing because of competition? Okay, and I'm asking you to think about this because I'm going to ask you to take another look. Somebody just mentioned about their assignment. So you get it, if you didn't submit it, you have a chance to get it in on time, because I'm going to change the date on it and ask everybody to take a second look at what you wrote before I grade it again, because I was kind of not pleased with the way people were interpreting these definitions.
Quite a wide range, basically from here down to here. However, we do find them in the smaller range here due to competition with the mussels. Biologists have shown some species interactions as is shown here, where you can see the larger fundamental niche where a species could be found and a smaller realized niche where they are found. In this case, simplified to only be about moisture and temperature. You can see a species can tolerate this temperature, but due to competition does not do so well. Other species outcompete it here, but at this temperature it has the advantage. This is where we do find it. And the same goes for moisture. It can live with this much moisture. However, other species do better here and will outcompete it, bringing its realized niche back to this point. In most cases, species interactions are governed by a lot more than just moisture and temperature. This is an oversimplification. However, it is useful to show the differences between fundamental and realized niche.
All right, so what I want you to do, I want you to come back to the assignment. I want you to go back to your My Habitats. study. So find where you wrote it down. I'm going to, oh, it should still be open because it's open until the 12th. And I maybe marked, I'm going to change the due date. Let me do that first. So it's open till tomorrow. And I'm going to make the due date tomorrow as well because I want you to look at it again. All right, so we're changing that. All right, so if you hadn't done it, it's now available, open, and it's not late. All right, so let's look at this. This was your assignment. So find your assignment. Let me know if I have to click it as resubmit, but you should be able to resubmit it. But look at what you wrote. All right, so this was what you needed to do. Describe the place in your community using the following way. So you had to use these words. So you say, my habitat is, and describe what habitat you're talking about. Again, it could have been your house, it could have been your classroom, but you had to describe the habitat, and you describe it using with the correct use of the word as far as vocabulary is concerned. So habitat is where you live. All right, niche is what you do where you live. All right, so we just looked at the two differences between fundamental niche and realized niche. So look at your habitat where you live and what is it you do in that. So it could be your house. So you live in a house and there's a lot of things that you could do in your house. Then your room might be your specialized area of that house. What do you do in your room? What is your realized niche? That might be the only thing you have control over in your whole house. You don't have control over the whole house. Okay? And then talk about the reason why you don't, because you have interspecific competition with other people in your house. All right, so again, I'm gonna give you 10 minutes, folks. So okay, if you've already resubmitted it, look at it again, because you might not, I need you to resubmit with a better understanding of what you're resubmitting. Because I started grading some, and it might have a 0 because it wasn't touching on all these points. Again, it said you needed to, and I'm going to check some. So before I check them again, I need you to go back and look at it again. So next 10 minutes, everybody take a 10-minute break and go look at yours. See what you wrote. You have an opportunity to fix it. After this, it gets graded the way it is. Okay? All right. Camilla, I'm going to look. You have to use all the words. Yes, you do. Habitat, fundamental niche, realized niche, interspecific competition. All words need to be used in your discussion. Okay? Because that's what it says. Using the following vocabulary words. That means it needs to appear in the sentence. All right. So again, if you got a 0 on it before, not to worry. I'll just take that out, I'm just gonna make it disappear. How about that? Delete. All right, so 0, if you got a 0, I happen to read yours already. I took the 0 out just now, so all zeros are coming out. And everybody has a chance to revisit that and submit it again. Okay, yeah, a lot of zeros here. And I think some of these zeros are not that I gave you a 0, is you got a 0 because it wasn't submitted by the deadline. So now you've got to a new opportunity to fix that. And if your body is present and everybody is present, I expect you to be working on that right now. It's like that after this Friday, it's a 0. Friday, it's a 0. If you already submitted, look at what you submitted, and if you like it, if you did what you were supposed to do, good. If not, fix it. All right. Camila, if you could explain that a little more. You've got all your vocabulary. Be a little more detailed in your discussion. All right. So I'm going in, it looks like everybody got a 0. I'm going in and taking all the zeros out. Again, you do have to use all 4 vocabulary words: habitat, fundamental niche, realized niche, interest-specific species, competition. 10 minutes. All right, if you submitted or you looked at yours and you like what you submitted, then leave it alone because it's already submitted. I just took the 0 out. I didn't cancel the submission. But if you want to fix it, fix it. Doing that. Check attendance. All right, if you finish that and you're satisfied with it, in Canvas, look at the next unit on community. We're going to talk about biodiversity next. Yes, that is a good way to put that. I like that. Camilla, I'm going to reshare that with everybody. I like the way you phrased that. Okay. All right, one of your classmates asked this question, and I'm saying yes, that's exactly what it is. It is. Your fundamental niche is something you could do in your house, but you don't get to do it because of interspecific competition in your house. So you need to tell me what it is that the specific activity that you could be doing that you don't get to do. That is an excellent way of putting that. Thank you for sharing that question or asking that question. And y'all remember to do that. Ask questions if you're not sure so that you can be more specific. Also, remember that on Tuesdays and Fridays, there's extra help if you need it at 1:35. So just let me know. Log back into the Zoom. All right, 5 more minutes, folks. Again, if you're finished already, in Canvas, look at community. That's the next unit. All right, so there's two things that I'm going to look at by tomorrow, close of business. Your ecosystems gizmo and your habitat study. Got a lot of things due. I might give it it may take another minute for me to get to looking at everybody's symbiosis project. What I really want to do with that, and I probably won't get around to that until next Wednesday, is to let you all do a gallery walk so you can see what other people were talking about. So by then I should have everybody's project in, and then we can share and you'll get a chance to look at other examples other than yours of symbiosis. Again, look at community if you're done. Think. All right, give me 1 minute. I'm gonna finish up attendance, which seems to need me to authorize. Okay, Nyla, there's not a submission. Did you want me to look at it on GoGuardian? Okay. I like that. Go ahead. All right, Nyla, that's good. Where is the gizmo? The gizmo is in Explore. It's in Clever under explorelearning.com. I think your assignment folder, you're welcome. Your assignment folder is on your to-do list. All right. So we're moving on to talking about communities. So we're looking at our ecological levels of organization. So again, remember that we start off with a single individual, and that is a organism. And you put a bunch of organisms of the same kind together, and that's a population. And then that population exists with other populations and in the same place, and that's a community. So in a community, we have this lovely word called biodiversity because these individuals are different. Okay. Instead of watching this clip here, which you're welcome to watch, we're going to watch a different clip. And it freezes.
Our planet is swimming, flying, and crawling with life. From tiny tardigrades to towering trees, every organism on Earth is connected. This complex web of life in all its forms and interactions is called biodiversity, and it is super important in keeping our planet healthy. You can find biodiversity in forests, rivers, deserts, and oceans, literally everywhere. It is the interactions of all the living organisms in a single environment that form an ecosystem. Each ecosystem relies on a constantly moving flow of energy between every organism inside it. For example, the Amazon is one of the world's most complex and biodiverse ecosystems, with millions of species and 1.4 billion acres of dense forest. But you don't have to travel to the Amazon to see biodiversity. You can find it simply by scooping up a handful of soil from your backyard. Did you know a quarter of all life on Earth can be found beneath our feet? Every patch of soil contains a thriving world living right beneath us. These soil communities are home to all kinds of small but mighty creatures, like bacteria, spores, and insects doing the dirty work to help plants grow, fight climate change, and provide the foundation for all ecosystems on land. Take a look at the soil found in the grasslands of the northern Great Plains. The bacteria and nutrients found in this soil allow specific plants and flowers to grow and provide for the native animals. This includes bison, black-footed ferrets, bumblebees, butterflies, and a long list of other species. These plants provide food for herbivores and omnivores, which in turn become a source of food for carnivores. The energy flows from one organism to the next, creating a thriving biodiverse ecosystem. If the soil changes or becomes unhealthy, then plants can't grow, animals can't feed on the plants, and big carnivores lose their prey, resulting in a devastating chain reaction. So why is biodiversity so important? Because we depend on it to eat, breathe, and survive. Nature provides the food that we eat, the water we drink, and many of the medicines that heal us. Rainforests and grasslands breathe oxygen into the atmosphere. Wetlands filter our water, and coral reefs and mangroves protect our shorelines from extreme weather. Without biodiversity, all of these ecosystems would no longer exist. Humans have been around for 200,000 years, only a tiny fraction of the planet's 4.5 billion year history. And yet, we have had a greater impact on the Earth than any other species. Human activity, how we feed, fuel, and finance our lives, is taking an unprecedented toll on nature. Our actions have significantly altered 75% of the land-based environment, like forests and grasslands, and about 66% of the marine environment. As the world's population continues to grow, the demands we place on the Earth exponentially increase. Borneo, a massive island in Southeast Asia, is home to thousands of different animal and plant species. Orangutans, pygmy elephants, clouded leopards, rhinos, and proboscis monkeys share this ecosystem with the world's tallest tropical trees. But Borneo's biodiversity also provides a wealth of natural resources that humans want, like hardwood trees, palm oil, gold, and diamonds. Forests are cleared, and the plants and animals that make Borneo so special are hunted and harvested. 30% of Borneo's forests have been wiped out in only 40 years, and we've lost half of all critically endangered Bornean orangutans in just the last 20 years. At this rate, biodiversity is struggling to keep up with the changing landscape, and when an ecosystem is lost, biodiversity will disappear. Human activities put more pressure on nature than ever before. But we also have the power to change this trajectory. With changes to our actions, we can reduce the pressure we have put on our environment, and biodiversity can begin to bounce back. So what can we do to help nature heal? We need to rethink how we're using natural resources, ease the pressure on ecosystems, and allow them to recover. World Wildlife Fund is working with governments, businesses, and communities to reduce carbon emissions, prevent habitat loss, and advance policies to fight climate change. We're focused on protecting wildlife and conserving natural resources, And we're exploring new ways to feed our population without hurting the environment. And the great news is that kids like you play an important part. Here are 4 things that you can do right now. Speak out. Talk with your friends, family, and teachers about the importance of protecting nature and biodiversity. Write a letter to a local politician or business about an environmental issue you care about. You may even start a movement at your school or community to help the planet. Save energy. Turn off lights, electronics, and appliances when you're not using them. Bike or walk when you can. And talk about switching to renewable energy and energy-efficient appliances. Grow plants. Plant your own vegetables or create a pollinator garden, choosing plants that attract bees and butterflies. And enjoy nature. Visit a local park or take a walk in your neighborhood and see what plants and animals you can find. The world is full of wonderful biodiversity just waiting to be explored. Share what you've learned, and together we can save Earth's amazing habitats. For more fun facts and activities,
Okay, and that's something that I'm going to have you all looking at in April. April is when everybody celebrates Earth Day. So for Earth Day, I'm going to have you look at, in combination with another topic that we're going to cover, what can you do if you had to do something to save your environment? What would it be that you're going to do? All right, so that's biodiversity. Biodiversity is a variety of things. So we are in a community. A community is a group of including a number of species and their numbers, and that includes the patterns and interactions, things that they do. So again, we're still looking at niche, a lot of different species. So if you went this evening, I challenge you, I'm not going to make you write it down or anything, but I just want you to reflect. Go outside your house and just sit for a minute and observe all the different species that are in your community, not just you, and make a list. I might just do that as a discussion. So think about that. So do that, and I'll put it in as a discussion on Monday. So Monday, think about that. So, maybe even Sunday evening, make a note to self that sit outside and observe nature. Spend a moment in your ecosystem and write down at least 6 other organisms that exist in your community. Okay? All righty. Now, remember that the ecosystem includes all the interactions of biotic and abiotic in a defined area. So the community, the interactions are just still biotic, just the living things. We're not looking at the water, the sidewalk, the street, the sun, and all that. We're just looking at the biotic factors in your area. Okay, so I'm gonna put that in as a discussion. When you come in, that's gonna be the warm-up question. Discuss the biodiversity in your area. All right, whatever this is not working for me, so I guess it's not gonna work for you either. So let's look down here, and these are 2 new vocabulary words that we have. So we have species. Species are individuals that live in the community. And then you have the foundation species, those that play a unique and essential role in creating and defining the community. Often the foundation species act by modifying the environment so that it can support other organisms. In your community, sometimes that's the humans. Okay. Then you have this other one, the keystone species, that is can't speak today, disproportionately large effect on a community's structure relative to its biomass or abundance. Keystone species differ from foundation species in 2 ways. They are more likely to belong to a higher trophic level. meaning they're predators, and we'll go back and look at what we mean by trophic levels. And they act in more diverse ways than foundation species, which tends to modify the environment. What that means is if this species was removed from the environment, it would have a very, very big effect. Okay, you had that question in your ecosystem activity. That was one of the last questions on your worksheet about the bees. They were the keystone species. Okay, so you had to answer that. All right. All right. Take a few minutes to finish reading this page. I'm not going to read it to you, but I do want to go through this video.
Friend interactions. They can live on top of one another, like certain birds nesting in trees, or even more crucially, these things might eat one another. This is a diagram, a network diagram of, believe it or not, a relatively simple ecosystem in which the organisms are interacting one with the other. We can draw lines between the species to indicate those interactions. And we can make the lines directional to show that material or matter and energy are moving from one species to another. When one organism takes a bite of another, it not only gets a mouthful of matter or food, but that food contains energy. So these arrows show the direction that energy is flowing from one species to another. The most important thing about these webs is that the strength of these interactions can vary. That is, the interdependence of the organisms in the web can vary. And here's something that might be counterintuitive. These interactions become less important the more species you have within a network. You can think of it as the interactions being spread among more players. But what happens when there are fewer players? Let's say we've got a really super simple set of interactions where this owl is eating that mouse, but can also eat this squirrel. This gives the owl options. If we remove one of these, take that guy right out of there, then we only have two species that are interacting with each other. And it's really easy to disturb this system. This guy will just eat all of these guys and boom, you can cause total ecological collapse. So the higher the biodiversity or species richness in a system or in a network, the stronger it is, the more stable it will be because of all the additional options open to the organisms in it.
Okay. Let me go back and look at your worksheet for a minute and show you, compare what they just said to okay. This was the worksheet that you had to turn in. When they said higher, if we're looking at the food web, higher trophic levels would be up here with the hawk and the wolf. They have a variety of things, and you had to draw arrows to the things that they eat. And notice this variety here. So all of this is one ecosystem. There's a variety of populations existing in the one area, and they're all in competition with each other or feeding off of each other. He talked about energy. Energy is transferred from one organism to another when they are eaten. The original energy is stored in plants because they get the energy from the sun. Other organisms can't store energy from the sun. They just can't do it. So plants photosynthesize so that they can make food and store that energy in chemical bonds. And then these organisms in the first level, primary consumers, get energy from the sun, but the flowers are also making the food and using the food for their energy. They got to grow, they've got to do all these life functions in order to stay alive. And so they use some of the energy. So when the bees and the mice and the rabbits eat the flowers, they're not getting 100% of the energy because some of it has been used. If you did the worksheet properly, you had 10% is used. It's 10% less every time you go up the food chain, because what is stored in that level of organism is now 10% less, because now the bees and mice and the rabbits have to use some of the energy that they consume, and they store the rest. And so that when the pigeon, the snake, and the coyotes have to feed on them, or whatever they're feeding on, they're getting less energy than the original level. And it keeps decreasing by 10% as you go up, because everybody in their level is using the energy, and they only have so much to left over for the next predator. Okay. All right, down here we had you define, so you had to just take that word from the glossary. What is the keystone species? And then in your particular activity, bees were considered the keystone species. So you wanted to look at what was their role and why are they more important than the rabbit? What would happen if we took out the bees, but not the rabbits? So that's what you were supposed to do with that. All right, closing that. So let's come back to module. All right, and again, remember that turning in the worksheet was only part of um, the activity. Answering all the questions in the activity was the other part. All right, so again, take a few minutes to read the rest of this page. Take the rest of the time to read this page and then answer these questions down here. Okay, and look at before you go. So I'm going to stop here to give you a chance to finish up anything that you hadn't finished up, because this is basically your Friday. And get that turned in and finish reading this page. And we'll go on from communities to succession next class. Okay. So study communities, like I said, think about, I am going to ask that question on Monday. If you sat outside, what organisms, what biodiversity, that's the question, what biodiversity exists in your community? Right. In fact, let me create the assignment, but I'm not going to post it until Monday. Yes, I know I'm sharing. I want you. I'm going to use vocabulary words. Fauna and flora. Fauna are the animals, flora are the plants. And that's not going to be available until Monday. And I know you all are so young, but today is 9/11. Does everybody remember the significance of 9/11? All right, so that won't show up until Monday as something that you have to tell me. But so when you come in, that's what you're going to see up, and I want everybody to answer that when you come in. Okay? But it's not for today. Today, I want you to finish up anything you haven't already finished up. And again, I know you all are young, but do any of you have any connection to 9/11 that you might have been from New York and knew somebody, know somebody related to somebody? I'm from New York originally, and I did have family members who had to walk home, and it was quite a disastrous day. Quite a disastrous day. I didn't lose anybody, but it changed everything. Changed the way we do everything. Between that and COVID. All right, so again, in the last 10 minutes, make sure, one, you've redone your habitat study. Two, you submitted your gizmo. And three, you've submitted your symbiosis case study, which a lot of you have not done. I got like 10 people who have submitted their case study. Locked out of what? Justin, what are you locked out of? Unauthorized for what? What assignment? What are you trying to look at that you're not getting into? Oh, yeah, I haven't published it yet, so that don't worry about that. It's not, um, think about it, write it down. If you can type it in your notes and save it, but I didn't publish it for you. So that's not going to be available. The one I just did is not going to be available till Monday. But think about it. I want you to actually go outside, spend the time with nature, and look around, write some things down. What you actually see. So again, flora flora is all the plants. It might be that you need to take a picture of them and then find out what their names are. Um, Everybody knows grass, but do you know what the trees are called in your neighborhood? And is there something other than trees? So four different kinds of plants and four different kinds of animals. Don't include you. And we assume that you are in the community, not you. So yes, that is locked. That's not something I want you to worry about submitting right now. All right, Sherrod, I just looked at yours. It was a really great answer. Isabella, I liked yours too. And I like that both of you started with, I live in Columbus, Georgia. That's great. Thank you both. I was laughing because somebody mentioned one of the things that's most irritating is you know that there's some leftovers in the fridge and you think about it, and by the time you get home, somebody else ate it. That's interest-specific competition. Oops. Yes, it is. It is exactly time to go. It's 11:25. So, all right, so you know what you got to do. See you on Monday. Have a great weekend.